The following is a session about using the Zettelkasten method for studying Hindu philosophy. And Hindu philosophy is a really, really bottomless pit of dreamlike insights, and it's really, really difficult to find your way through. And the Zettelkasten method is the perfect tool to contain this almost like gin like power and explosion. So I hope you enjoy it and yes, have fun.
Please let me know if you see the screen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this first theme is on the exploration of symbolism in Indian philosophy.
Mhm.
So this started as a very small, rough note, reference to this character called Yama
Mhm.
that is known to be the god of death. So he's the gatekeeper. In Hindu mythology or Indian philosophy, when the human dies, the soul goes back, and the Yama decides whether it goes to heaven or it goes to hell. So
Mhm.
heaven is basically liberation to higher consciousness. So it doesn't need to take the human form, doesn't need to reincarnate. Hell means it has to suffer. So it comes back as a to a more difficult, more demanding life or
Mhm.
a lower form like an animal or an insect. So I started studying this as one of the Upanishads called Katho Upanishad. That's a dialogue between Yama, who's the teacher. So he's the Lord of Death, and he is also the Lord of Dharma, the law. And he imparts this knowledge to one of the students called Nachiketa on what is the secret of immortality. So that's the theme. And that's how this note started. And that got me thinking because the term yama is also used in Yoga Sutra. So it's one way of doing discipline in yoga practice.
Mhm.
And then the idea of death being the ultimate teacher was kind of intriguing. So that's how this started. So it's kind of a semi-structure note, and it tries to. So basically, what I'm trying to get to is similar to the concept or the symbolism of Yama. There are several characters in Indian mythology, and they are scattered across texts. They may have different forms, different icons, different. They participate in different stories, and they have different roles and different teachings to teach. So I was trying to bring them together and use Zettelkasten to see if there are, if that can be a way to go outside or go beyond the story to the concept of how this relates to the model of universal consciousness.
Mhm.
So that's what the end objective is, and then ultimately the idea is to start converging to how Hinduism sees the creation and purpose of human life
Mhm.
as part of living, but not as an escape from the world.
Mhm.
Basically, it's a multifaceted concept. So, um, should I take, I might jump through the links, but okay. So, the first and the most popular presentation of Yama, which is more popular in the Indian community, is the Gatekeeper of Death.
Mhm.
Uh, and then there is one note here. So basically, when I went through the texts, the role of gatekeeping of heaven versus hell also controls to what extent the lower consciousness is being allowed to liberate. So, to what extent the humanity can evolve at a point of time. So, it's not just the judgment of one particular soul, but as a collective, how many souls are allowed to go to immortality, or how many humans are being allowed to evolve,
Mhm.
and to what extent the cycle of rebirth has to continue. So there is at the micro or at a individual level, and then collectively for the human race itself to evolve.
Mhm.
And then I tried to get some mythological references, and um, so basically, um, the role of Yama is similar to a plane between the human and the divine hemisphere. So there is another explanation that talks about um, an oversimplified version of creation as per Indian wisdom, and that says that there's the lower hemisphere, which is the human being, and there's the higher hemisphere, which is the world being,
Mhm.
and that is separated by something called as an overmind. And I'm jumping, but so overmind is linked to another philosopher that has categorized evolution as levels of mind. So the animal mind is the lowest, and then it goes to thinking mind, to aspiring mind, over mind, and then super mind, and then ultimately the higher consciousness.
Mhm.
So we go back. Sorry. So in that model, overmind is the intermediary plane that divides the two hemispheres. And then I was debating whether Yama is same as overmind.
Mhm.
Um, but this is very contradictory to another interpretation um, of the division that I had read, which was that overmind is like a golden lid.
Mhm.
Um, and you really have to aspire and go through all the cleansing through the yoga of mind and body. And then, if you look at Buddhism, get rid of all the desires and all the animal tendencies in the human to break through that golden lid.
Mhm.
So that was one. And then the other is one can do it through crossing the boundaries of life.
Mhm.
So there is another reference that talks about the concept of the luminous world of what is called as swar, something similar to heaven.
Mhm.
And the the land of the living is separated by a river that has to be crossed by the soul, and that's a dangerous crossing because you have to really be virtuous to land on the right side, which is the heaven, or you will be sent back.
Mhm.
So that's another way of dividing the two hemispheres.
Mhm.
And the person who controls it again is Yama. And then there is a lot of description about okay, so if we go back to so there are some iconographies. So he is riding a buffalo. He's of color blue. He holds a staff in one hand and a noose in another. And then he has emissaries. They would go and drag the soul out of the dying human, and then he will use the noose to carry the soul and bring it back, and then it will face the judgment, and he will take the decision whether it would go to heaven or hell. And then there's some notes on why the blue color, why there is a noose. And he also has as his guardian two four-eyed hounds. Um, and there are then significance of each of these that don't appear together, but they would appear, and depending upon the kind of karma that the human has done, they would drag this or help guide the soul um, to the judicial court of Yama.
Mhm.
Um, okay. So there is that. death concept. And then there is the dharma concept, which is the law. So he is also, um, so there's a role of a scribe and reward and punishment and different types of hell that are described, what types of punishment. And in Mahabharat, one of the characters, key characters was Yudhishthira, known as Dharmaraja, or again the king of Dharma. So Yama is known to be the divine father of that king. Um, okay, then there is another text called Savitri,
Mhm.
where the protagonist, she loses her husband to um, death, and then she prays, and Yama appears to take the husband's soul, and she enters into a discussion with him and convinces him to uh, let the husband continue to live. And at that point of time, Yama transforms into instead of instead of a more fearing symbol, he transforms into a loving version of the divine. So um, and that also got me thinking about these deities that are associated with death.
Mhm.
They also have another form which is more loving, which shows that death is not a discontinuity. It's more kind of a transition from one form to another form. And then it seems it's broadly present in not just in Hinduism, but in other traditions as well. Okay, so that, and then of course, because I was studying it as part of the Upanishad, there are references to, so this was kind of the starting point. There are references to different verses and how that dialogue between the Yama as the teacher and Nachiketa as a student. And this is reference to specific Upanishad verses. This is where I started from. So there are teachings around transcendence of death, attainment of the eternal, and how Yama is described as the child of sun, which is worshipped in Indian tradition.
Mhm.
And he says that he is the all-knower. And he is also very careful about giving the knowledge of death, because it should only be given to people who are evolved or worthy of receiving the knowledge. Otherwise, they can misuse it or it can be dangerous for them.
Mhm.
And okay, then the reference to Yama in Yoga Sutra talks about, huh? Okay, this is not working. A set of restraints that have to be practiced. So those were kind of the narratives I was able to capture. There are a whole lot of more narratives in other stories, mythological tales and narratives that I have a long list of. These are, some of them may lead to other areas, but I think I captured most of them. And then some research on how it appears in other stories, in other mythologies, which is other than Hinduism.
Mhm.
So the idea was to expand this symbolism to try and understand where the interconnections are
Mhm.
and how this links to the model of consciousness, which talks about evolution from a lower mind to a higher mind, and then the filter in between. So to that sense, I saw some similarities, but then also some questions on how the overmind versus the concept of Yama versus the golden lid, that would fit. So that's broadly this part of work.
Mhm. So one one idea that
Hmm.
that, that was sparked me already by the four-eyed dog is that you might benefit from having a dedicated node on which you develop what I would call something like a dictionary of mythologies. Um, because when you try, so I mean, you're trying to get from let's say a very mythologic story or stories to um, some insights about life as it shines to you. So it should be very like practical. And one way how I feel or not how I think it works is by somewhat formalizing the mythologic language that is used by creating a dictionary, meaning um, for example that the dog have four eyes. That means like very straightforward, they see more. So in mytholic, both in visual imagery but also in written text, a lot of the meaning that is transported is through um, uh, what I would call like something like immediate effects. Also, for example, in Norse mythology, where the horse of Odin, Sleipnir, um, Sleipnir has eight legs, for example. So
Mm.
it's not by chance that it has eight legs because it's the
Right,
fastest horse that ever lived, for example.
right.
And there are some hidden things. So one of I or for me, the use of this was or it helped me most tangibly, for example, when I thought about Kali or its specific imagery of Kali.
Mm.
Because there
Mm.
were, for example, or there were like she had fangs. She also had purple or blue
Right.
skin. She had four arms, but in each arm she had weapons. So it was like a hyper elevation of all aspects of destruction or death in that case. Also, the
Mm.
eyes were predatory eyes and stuff like that. And it helped me a lot to just to develop a dictionary of yeah, a dictionary of quote unquote words that are used to convey a meaning. So this would be something like a toolkit because now when you analyze or when you think about the symbolism of Yama, then you could use it to build this dictionary, and it can be even in alphabetic order, so
Right.
like a true dictionary. The next theme or the next image that you're analyzing, now you don't start from the bottom, but now you can basically test for the words that are used. So are there, for example, is there a symbolism of multiple eyes? Or is there a symbolism of like multiplication, like eight legs instead of four, or eight
Mm.
arms instead of, and so on and so forth. So this would help you also to guide a little bit of your work because you, while moving forward your knowledge on this specific topic, in meaning the symbolism of Yama, you also move forward your skill, not symbolized but represented by the quality of your dictionary. For the same,
Mm.
like the same with learning a new language. So obviously you don't
Mm.
want to learn a new language just so you can speak in another language, but you want to, for example, you learn English most of the time to speak to more people, for example.
Right.
But by, for example, let's say you write in a forum and then you speak at work and then you read text and stuff like that, you also building your toolkit. And this building your toolkit is a positive side effect that you can make or that you can facilitate consciously in your Zettelkasten. So you'd have just a structure node that is an alphabetic list of all the symbolism or of all the symbolic of the symbols. So perhaps, or I think the word for that or the scientific term is mythology. So the smallest unit of meaning that's present in a
Hmm.
myth.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So this is yeah. So this would be my advice. So what should we do next? Or
Okay,
what is
so I
what? Hmm?
so I think, yeah, so the symbolism idea is good because even for me, I have to remember. So I started doing, for example, one structure note on the concept of Trinity or three,
Hmm.
because there are a lot of three or triplets that are happening. Then there are quadruplets or
Hmm.
the concept of four, the concept of eight, and it goes on till 108, which is the sacred number for chanting in several Hindu temples.
Hmm.
So numerical, and then iconography, and then also the way the deities are predicted. I mean, so for example, Yama rides a buffalo. So what's the significance? Because the cow has a different significance, and a buffalo, and that too a he buffalo. And
Hmm.
then they all have some toolkits, like Vishnu has the flying saucer that he uses to kill the adversaries,
Hmm.
and this guy has a staff, and Krishna has a flute.
Hmm.
So each of this adds to the overall image, whether they are scary or there are, the way the deity is supposed to interpret. So
Hmm.
that and that itself is over the years gets transformed. So for example, in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest or the earliest reference in Indian philosophy, calls Yama as one of the primordial beings. So he's the Adam equivalent.
Hmm.
And there it's a brother and sister that are born, and the sister wants to carry forward human life. So she says, okay, they have to procreate, but he refuses, and it says like that's against the virtue of dharma. And then he says that he will retire from life, and he transcends and accepts death. So, and then when you come to the Upanishads, then he's the Lord of Death.
Hmm.
One linkage is that he might be the first being that transcended or that went beyond the river.
Hmm.
Uh, and then therefore he is the Lord of the law, because he upheld the law by not committing incest, so to say. And also the Lord of Death, because he transcended to the other side. Now, how that exactly happened, that is lost in translation between the Rig Veda and the Kathopanishad. And then when you go one level lower into the Puranas, then it's then it's like a fight, and he's doing something and he loses, and there are learnings out of that. But that's very transactional to life learning. Okay, because if you do this, then you will be punished like this, or the soul will be tried like that. So
Hmm.
it's very interesting how through the hierarchy of documents, the form and the character transforms, and in some ways it is brought away from the abstract. So from a primordial being to being one of the warriors, and then that's a very, in some ways, that's a very drastic transition. So that would be one, and there the symbolism and the dictionary comes useful.
Hmm.
Then the other is kind of taking everything and saying, okay, even though there were stories, ultimately they talk about something to do with evolution. So it's
Hmm.
not just about doing good in life, because that will earn you a good outcome post death, but it's about thinking towards transcending or the boundaries of the mind. So it's
Hmm.
about, so that message is common. So I think you're right, those were the kind of the two facets to this thinking. Any other comment on the overall structure or the atomicity? Because I tried to make at least the key part of the note a little bit more atomic
Hmm.
instead of cramming everything into one. So,
Um, yeah, so I think your notes follow a particular pattern. So you seem to develop some kind of inventory at the top, and then below that you accumulate, let's say, the more disorderly content of the note, meaning so there is a collection of verses and stuff like that. So this is, yeah, I mean, we had this topic a couple of times. So the dealing with this material is a lot of mess. It's not so clear cut, and you can't expect clear cut or very atomic, beautiful, or not beautiful, but very orderly notes, like as if you would learn about, I don't know, about some stuff from a textbook in the first semester or something like that. So, what regarding the structure, I think you will benefit from um, developing patterns that help you to guide the structure on other than an inventory. So right now you are a lot or creating inventories. So for example, in with Yama symbolism, you have like a list, like Lord of Death, Lord of Dharma, and like an inventory of traits or inventory of perspectives on
Right.
death. And the overarching goal, so if the overarching goal is to answer or to research the concept of creation and the concept of purpose, then you benefit from some structure that help you to move from the truth of the myth to the truth of the
Mm,
perhaps of the
mm,
immediate or something like that. So
mm,
let's say perhaps some pattern, some strategy or tactic that you then use. So you already have like something like micro tactics, meaning you make connections between the various levels of the text. So I hope I remember it correctly. So when you have the Vedas, let's say on the most abstract, then you can track the same patterns down from the Vedas to the Upanishads to the Bhagavad Gita. Is the order
yes,
correct? Or,
correct. That is correct. Yes, that's correct.
and then the more immediate stories and um, what yeah, from a Western perspective, what seems to be missing is something like analytical philosophy. So
Mm,
everything seems, or to me, it seems to be very rich in image and yeah, on some level very abstract, but not let's say it's not the or the life is not extracted out of it enough. So
mm,
you don't have like formal definitions and stuff like that. And I think this could be actually a help in establishing a pattern in which you or which you can then use as a tool to like extract out the wisdom from the lively text to then applications. So, for example, when you think about concepts as like the golden lid or the river or Yama as let's say as a judge where you will end up. It seems to me that all this converge into life, that there are special occasions, events, or situations
mm,
that seems to be decisive moments. So everything kind of like accumulates like in life. So you live your life, and in the end, there's a decisive moment. And
mm,
a very, let's say, a very worldly concept is the difference between training and competition. So training
mm,
is like a slow accumulation, and then let's say you are do a competition at the Olympics. You train for 4 years, and then this moment is the decision on which you judge the last 4 years. And obviously,
right.
something can go wrong. So you make everything right, and then you I don't know, for some strange reason you injure yourself, and then you don't do well in competition. So it's not that clear cut, but I guess also in the in you will find a story in which everything goes well, and then you have just an accident, and then it's up to you to make the best of it, or something like that. And this is how I then would, for example, yeah, how I would structure or have a pattern for a specific type of nodes. So the node would be divided into sections, and depending on which direction you want to go, but you have the section in which you explore the imagery and will be true to the mythological methods. So, for example, you create your inventory on, let's say, on Yama and his roles, and also you connect it, or you have to connect it to the core texts. Then you try to extract out, let's say, the more formal patterns, something like training competition or accumulation and decision and stuff like that. So this would be more similar to what I experienced in Western ontology, for example. It's not exact ontology because ontology in Western philosophy is more or is aims to just the being itself. So it's more about time and the hyper abstract concepts. But what I'm getting is that you like extract out patterns that seem applicable more in our ordinary life. And
Right.
then the last one would be direct application. So it can be principles on which you want to base your life off. It can be methods. It can be techniques. So a very on-topic example would be how the Zettelkasten relates to complex writing problems. Because you
Mm.
accumulate, or in your Zettelkasten, you accumulate the knowledge. So it's not that you are writing is just, or the written word is just a lucky coincidence that this is the medium which we use mostly to think with the Zettelkasten, but it's more about just accumulating the knowledge. And then there comes a point in which you reach a point in which you make a decision, okay, what to do with it. And if you are a writer, you ask, then you make the decision, okay, this might be an inspirational book, or this might be a manual, or whatever. So this would be a direct application, and the structure of the node would reflect the various stages of transformation of the knowledge from the very organic, living, and rich story to the yeah to the more abstract and a little bit lifeless, then back to life as we live it in the direct translation and the principles. So
Right.
this would be, or this is one of the spontaneous spontaneous idea now that I have, and these would be something like a type of note. So, and the type of node would be based in your method to extract out the knowledge and transform it into a form that's then applicable to real life and also obviously to your research interests.
Right. Okay, that's good. Yes, so I think I can see compared to where I was when I started, where each of these was kind of a disjointed piece. So at least it's come a little bit beyond that. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think the forward direction is useful. So I think that's a good way to segue to the next question, which is on the two kind of high level questions. So I was debating how to link this and huh? Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, so this goes the other extreme, and I was trying to put some frameworks on the creation concept. because what I found common in several of these texts that I study is it always goes to the reason of how the world was founded or how we are created.
Mhm.
And I was trying to simultaneously build that into the Zettelkasten. Otherwise, I end up getting too distracted by that particular symbol or that particular piece of text, and then it gets negated by something else, or it gets taken over by another. So I'm still debating on what's the best way to do this. So my start was to kind of research and list down all the traditions or all
Mhm.
the theories that talks about causality or creation and why things happen in a particular way. So it'll be useful to get some sense around whether this is the right direction or is it something that would make it too broad and too divergent. So my idea was that I at least identify the key themes when I look at causality from the rational perspective or the mechanistic perspective
Mhm.
in various schools of thought, and then try and see, for example, the story of Yama and what is the key learning on which ones resonate out of those.
Mhm.
Um, and over a period of time, if there are a few that come out stronger than the others, which means that there is a greater, so I'm looking at it from the lens of Indian thinking. So that means that there is a greater emphasis on those few elements, and then use the abstract verses of the Vedas and the Upanishads, or also the concept of divinity as defined in Hinduism, to say that those seem to be the common factors or the common theories behind creation.
Mhm.
I, I'm still debating whether this is a good approach or do I continue, because my concern is that each of these texts is very dense, and to
Mhm.
get to the core takes a lot of time.
Mhm.
And the interpretations from Sanskrit to English are also contradictory between duality and non-duality, between reincarnation and the definition of the soul. So at some point of time, I need to have my own framework. So this is not something which is proven or so this is kind of a long list, and the idea is that I come up with my own framework that I can relate to,
Mhm.
saying that that becomes my ultimate lens of looking at the fundamental question of creation and the purpose of life.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, causality, I guess I would say causality is perhaps just one tiny step more less abstract as the most abstract concept like time or existence or something like that. So I thought about the question or the I don't know if it's even like a valid question. What did cause causation? So I think this, or to me, this question shows the difficulty to think about causality because it's so I would say axiomatic. It's a precondition of thinking. So if you question causality, very little makes sense to think further. So it seems what you're doing. So first of all, the basic idea is I want to say right because it feeds my ego because I would do it exactly like you would do it. So when I have a concept that I need to explore broadly, so I have enough substance that I can work with to develop my own understanding. I try to collect as much different perspectives. And as we discussed earlier, Hinduism especially viewed as a philosophy, is especially receptive to many, or it's very yeah, it's receptive and open. It can absorb a lot of different
Exactly.
perspectives, and this. Yeah, this it invites this first accumulation and creating an inventory. So this is, I think, a very and both natural but also a very sound first move. So the question then, so the problem now is this will explode because
Yeah.
each perspective is very complicated and yeah, and very rich. And the concept itself is also so abstract and so close to the axioms of being itself that it's very hard to think about that. So um, my inclination would be to narrow it down to um, the couple of research interests that I would have. So my first aspect is or the first instinct that I have is asking about the motivation to actually do this research. Not for you personally, but why is causality such an important term? That came up in Western philosophy, but also is I mean, I would, from my perspective, it's front and center in Indian philosophy or in Hindu philosophy because causality is, I mean, it seems to me that the whole Hindu philosophy could be summarized as an exploration of the causality of causalities. So the psychological lens for me would be, it seems to be that we are interested in causality because we are interested in controlling an outcome. Because if causality is true, when we understand the causal mechanisms and we have influence on the causes, then we can determine the effects. And this seems to me very close to the idea of Dharma. So if we understand that lying, stealing, cheating leads to a specific outcome, or the other side also, then we can make an informed decision and kind of like control what next life will have for us, or even the next day, hour, and or month, or something like that. Um, because right now, so I mean, you collected a lot, so you have a lot of material to work, and now the next step would be, I think, at the top of the note, um, select out the very few lenses through which you want to explore this wide topic. So one lens that I presented is psychological motivation. So why does it move us people so much, this concept? Another could be more abstract. So one could be dealing with the problem of causality as it was brought up by Hume. So we don't have direct access to causality, so we infer about the cause-effect relationship just by probabilistic
Mm.
means. So this invokes like some kind of other problems, and this is or the motivation behind that, or the lens is um, certainty of knowledge, or the confidence that we can have in types of knowledge, and this then connects to skepticism and all this other stuff. So this would be another lens, and
Mm.
yeah, if you have a couple of them, I would say this makes it more clearer on how to move forward. So at the top of the note, you would select out the lenses just to control the amount
Mm.
and the weight of the topic, and then you can connect back the lenses to your work. Meaning, when you deal with causality, then you can specify the question of causality within the other topics through the lenses that you developed, or not developed, but selected out,
Mm.
because those are then the actual interests that you have.
Mm. Yeah. Uh, so I think that resonates well with me. And my idea of venturing into this kind of abstract topic was also um, to converge my own thoughts, because sometimes when I read through different interpretations, I get a common message, and they sound like the idea of manifestation and the idea of worship or bhakti in Bhagavad Gita, very similar. Of course, one is material manifestation, other is divine manifestation, but the principles and the path is similar. At other times, they are very, very contradictory, and that happens within Hindu texts also, because there are different ways to liberation, and one says surrender to the divine, then the other says, you have to achieve the perfect in the human form, and then the other says, okay, leave the material world completely, which is what Buddhism says. So at some point of time, these cannot be contradictory. They have to come from a common core.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and then I end up questioning, because I cannot question Buddhism as a religion. It's proven the test of time, and there's some people who kind of swear by it. But by the fundamental nature of the question, it cannot be contradictory. The core question has to be more uniform, more converging.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that keeps on coming back every time
Mm-hmm.
I go through my notes. And so I thought it might be good to address that upfront. Otherwise, every time I've end up with a particular piece, I end up with more questions, and then
Mm-hmm.
there are, okay, was it worth it, or did I read the Bhagavad Gita, but at the end it says surrender to the divine, but what authority does divine have,
Mm-hmm.
and where does that authority come from? So where
Mm-hmm.
is that truth? So those kind of things, they keep on resonating. So yeah, so these are the North Star questions that I want to kind of use to guide the level of depth to which I go in a particular text or in a particular area.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I can use that to say, okay, it's helping me strengthen the idea of unity, well and good. If it doesn't, then either I am interpreting it wrong, which means I have to relook at it from another philosopher's point of view, or maybe go to some other text, or it's just a narrow interpretation, which people
Mm-hmm.
have caught on as a fad. And that happens with some of these texts as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't need to spend time on it, because it doesn't help me with clarifying and getting more light into my own way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, on the purpose of humanity as well. So, what is my role?
Mm-hmm.
Because that also, it's similar. It can be calibrated through different purpose filters. So I was thinking of having two of those as kind of the two North Star notes on causality, and then the who am I kind of framework.
Mm-hmm.
And then those use those two lens to so whenever I kind of deep dive into a particular concept, use that to see whether it helps me solidify on those two parameters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, do you have also, or do you think sometimes in the other direction, meaning do you come from the world to the divine? Because it seems to me that your thinking is revolving around not top down as a method, but top down from the divine and then slowly descend to the more worldly layer. And I would say it sometimes or it should be possible to come from a very particular problem, meaning I don't know, let's say the problem of bureaucracy. So people are stuck in bureaucracy, and or one theme that captures my mind regularly, most likely because I live in Germany, the hellhole of bureaucracy, or one of the hellholes of bureaucracy in the world. And that the problem of bureaucracy is that as an individual, you are against the system. So when I don't know, when the insurance companies or the tax or whatever writes me a letter, it's not that I have a personal interaction. I'm a person and I'm up against the system if I have a problem. And I send it's basically me against not the world, but against this strange big
Yeah,
structure.
yeah.
And how to navigate this. For me personally, for example, it's always very difficult to accept that even though there might be a name written under the letter as a signature, it's not a personal relationship with a person that I have, but it's rather an inter. It's almost as or being angry because I got a letter is the same as being angry because it rains. Because it doesn't make
Yeah,
sense. There is no. I don't have a personal relationship to the rain. It's
yeah.
just a thing that happens, and I have to deal with it with a complete lack of emotion. And at the same time, there's an opportunity to create personal connection. So, for example, when I have actually a problem with some bureaucracy stuff, and I let's say go to what's the word agency ministry, just I visit somebody, I can connect to a specific person, so the counselor or who am I, or the bureaucrat that I'm interacting with, and the overwhelming majority of the situations is very positive because
Mm,
now we it seems to me that I'm entering a team and we work against the bureaucracy because I never felt that the person or the bureaucrat is just in somehow an agent of this abstract bureaucracy and is now also against me, but we are
mm,
together and the official that I'm dealing with is helping me again how to deal with all this kind of mess. And it seemed, or this would be an immediate problem, and it's on my, I mean, it's my personal, I guess my personal like style is to too much to moralize and philosophize these kind of situations. So I get from this, and then I seek out more abstract texts and or more abstract and philosophical, and then also mythological
mm,
terms to kind of get in the other direction. So is
mm.
this what is happening in your Zettelkasten also?
Actually, it's an excellent example. And even though I have dealt with bureaucracy, worked in several of them, but the way you put the correlation, it's kind of beautiful in several ways. So if I reflect, so one way to interact is individual versus bureaucracy. So you can be an individual who accepts. So the letter comes and you just comply and treat it as fait accompli. You could oppose. So you
Mhm,
could, send them complaints. You could organize a protest, and that could be the purpose, hoping that they would relent or they would reform. You could also build a network into the bureaucracy, or you could find a job within the bureaucracy so that you could ease your own problems, you could make money out of it, you could reform the system, you could improve the quality of life.
mhm,
Or you could also say that this is just a myth, which is somebody has created rules, and it's all um, it's not the true way. It's just because it's somebody has thought of insurance and you have to pay a premium, and so it's kind of a make believe framework in which you live and then interact with the bureaucracy.
mhm,
So all those to me are okay. I mean, depending upon one's own temperament and appetite and ability slash capability, that those models are fine. But where it gets tricky for me is uh, Hinduism says everything comes from the one Brahman, so it's one spirit.
mhm,
So it's you who is the same as the bureaucracy, who's the same as the system, who's the same as the person who sent you the letter,
mhm,
and it all is the game of the divine.
mhm,
So how do I understand it in a way that I don't undermine me as an individual and the divine as the institution,
mhm,
in a way where it relates to my own inquiries? So I can dismiss it as a game and say all this is, you know, just for somebody's entertainment. So I have to play my role,
Mm-hmm.
but that diminishes my role as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
I can quit from the bureaucracy, go to the forest and meditate,
Mm-hmm.
saying that that is just the material world. But that also to me, it's a waste of life.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be something more important. So which is my own self inquiry, that what is the purpose? Is it finding the best role, the topmost role on the bureaucracy so that I don't face the world problems?
Mm-hmm.
Um, doesn't that hasn't kind of answered my own question, that that's not the purpose. Uh, so I think the idea, that the example that you gave is pretty much perfect to the situation. Now, sorry, coming to the Zettelkasten, so there is the top down because it started from the Big Bang. So the creation came out of nothing, and then something was created, and there was evolution, and then matter and life. But again, going back to the idea that everything is one, and bound by consciousness means that the same consciousness occupies a stone or a rock, but it is so inert that push comes to shove, the rock will not move.
Mm-hmm.
It will break, it will get destroyed, it will get weathered, but it cannot move because it is so inert.
Mm-hmm.
To the level of animals that will run away at the slightest sound of fear, or they will feel threatened, to the level of humans that will build complex systems to protect themselves from nature.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then seeing, now, because it is all comes from the single source of truth, uh, then it has to evolve to the next level, which is the supermind and the superhuman kind of concept. So, uh, if I accept that there is this uniform, there is a purposeful causality, it
Mm-hmm.
is not chaos, it is not randomness, it is not a scientific theory, but it is purposeful. And I find my purpose in that without running away or without giving up. That kind of satisfies my own inner inquiries.
Mm-hmm.
So it is top down, but at the same time, it is bottom up because from the stone, the amoeba came, and from, and then the
Mm-hmm.
plants. And so the two North Star questions are top down, but then the symbolism at the each of the stories linking to the two North Star notes is the bottom up,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to connect. It's just that the connection is not as apparent because that message over millions of years has got lost. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of ambitious challenge. I don't know to what extent, but the idea is just to get a direction to guide my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think the top down and bottom up, keeping both of them in mind simultaneously is important. Otherwise, it just ends up being narrow or dismissive of certain concepts,
Mm-hmm.
or diluting the messages in certain concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's
Um,
that's the
makes sense from the Hindu perspectives, because um, if you don't separate yourself from the whole, because you are part of the whole, then uh, um, one answer might even be it doesn't matter, because either you come from bottom up, top down, or like think from the middle. You always think about the whole, whether you
right,
know it or not.
right. So yeah, that's the and I kind of, there are few ideas or few models that I can relate to more. Like the consciousness model works well for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then this idea about some of the major elements and their symbolism, like earth, wind, fire, and how at different levels of creation, these are calibrated to determine how inert or how active the level of consciousness is in that particular life form that I like. And I feel there are still a lot of undiscovered messages because the texts are read at a hierarchical level and not all together. So that's what I'm trying, but again, it's quite challenging because not everything is available. Some of it has not been translated,
Mm,
and the messages are very, very different. But to the extent I can,
mm,
uh, and I started reading them sequentially, but that did not help me because I started then questioning the texts.
mm,
And then I had to get to the next level, which broadened my own awareness. And then when I came back to the other text, I said, "Oh, this is not about uh, this is not just about worshiping a stone, but it is the form that I see in that stone,
mhm,
uh, which is my interaction with that inanimate object. But it's the it's the dedication in me that comes up when I see that particular stone versus another rock. It's that interaction is living, it's dynamic,
mhm,
even though the objects may not be as living or as dynamic. So those are, I mean, I have a bunch of these that come more naturally to me, and some that they don't.
mhm,
So yeah, that's the broad idea, that through this, improve my own understanding, build the connections, have the top down and the bottom up, or middle out, whichever way,
mhm,
and then at least narrow it down to two or three themes, which I say, okay, I mean, those answer my own inner inquiries.
mhm.
So it's slow progress, but it's it's moving.
Yeah, but progress with this matters is always slow. I mean, I can still remember when I first even or read a text or in a textbook on ontology, and it's I would say frustrating might be a good word because it's so abstract, and then you kind of like try to see hidden messages, and then also I sometimes like also question it a lot because I thought, okay, it might be that I understand something, but what if I understand some abstract language that is never spoken and never applied? So it might be a testimony. In the end, I have a testimony of my grit and my dedication, but for nothing. And I mean, this is obviously it's a language of life, so you can be assured that it's spoken, metaphorically speaking, but still the slowness and yeah, the slow incremental nature of like tiny steps is still there. But to summarize what the next task might be then for you is, so first to create a dictionary of the mythologic language,
Hmm.
and second to develop a pattern of knowledge transformation so you can have some repeatable path
Right.
to connect the very abstract and divine um, to the stone, basically, but
Mm.
perhaps stop at the practical level of what to do in life. So I guess these will be the thing. And also, um, I don't know how it would look like, but it seems to me that it would be a promising idea for you to have a structure node just as a general toolbox. So you would link out to the dictionary, to the patterns of knowledge transformation, and whatever tools you will develop. And by tools, I mean templates, checklists, and perhaps, or no, not perhaps, and workflows. So repeatable patterns that you can apply in multiple situations. So the working on that, or the pattern is the same that with the dictionary. So um, while diving deeper into the immediate interest and the particular interest, you also slowly develop the skills that help you with other inquiries. But in the Zettelkasten it's more tangible because then
Right.
you can see the toolkit, and then also having this toolkit sometimes is it helps because it's something similar to a creative technique. Because if you don't know how to move forward, but you feel there is something or that I need to push, but I don't know in which direction to push, then you can
Right.
open up this note and ask yourself, okay, which tool applies? Very similar to in real world. So you have a problem. Let's say you want to, I don't know, build something but you don't know to move forward. Then you ask yourself, okay, is it a problem of a hammer or a screwdriver? And then you just like lay out your tools and ask yourself, okay, how do I achieve this goal? And it might end up, okay, I don't need this so, but having this other so, this will help me. And just by being confronted with the toolkit, it helps you to mentally test or to yeah to make a
Mm.
thought experiment. What if I select out this tool? Would it help me? So
Right.
sometimes, yeah, when I try to get deep into some work of fiction, I sometimes use my own toolkit for that matter. So I have like a couple of thinking tools for character analysis, and when I feel okay, I want to get deeper into this character for whatever reason, then I can sometimes even just try. So I don't know, but if I like really don't know, I just pick some random tool that I apply and see where it leads where it leads. And this would or could help you to avoid some situations of staleness when you feel that you need to move forward, but you don't
Right.
know how.
Okay, sounds good. I think, and it also brings in some kind of a standardization, because the other thing that I find myself doing is, if it's after 2 years, if I approach the same inquiry, the method kind of may not be as disciplined as it was at one point of time. So I don't want to lose the thinking,
Mhm.
which I would do. And if it's replicable, then great. So I think that idea, it's very useful. Thank you for suggesting that.
Awesome. Yeah, like I have to say, I always like to be confronted with Hindu philosophy. I don't know. Perhaps it's just the exotic nature because it's exotic to me, but yeah, it
No,
just on that matter, it was really enjoyable this session.
thank you so much. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to interact again, Sacha.
So wait a second, I was just